Voice. My name is Angel Kasabo, and we sincerely apologize for starting the program very late. This was due to technical issues that we needed to sort out in the background. We really apologize, but thank you so much that you are tuned in. And this particular morning, we are also live on Facebook. You go to your Facebook and search for RCV News. RCV News is a platform where we post everything current affairs. So come through and let's get interactive. This morning we do look at national matters, and I'm privileged to be joined by Tonse Alliance Youth Chairperson. Is also a lawyer and Matero aspiring Member of Parliament, Council Celestin Mukandila. Good morning and welcome to Chatback.
Good morning, Angel, and thank you very much for having me here.
All right, how are you doing? And how has been work of late? I know you've been busy, but I know we're behind time, but let's just catch up. How are you doing? How is the family doing?
Well, the family is great, but of course, we're in mourning period, as a matter of fact, and I think we could be better. Yeah, so otherwise, one loss and some gains that we've had for the Zambian people. I think generally we are surviving. God has been gracious.
Wonderful. Very quickly, let's start with first your role as Tonse Youth Chairperson.
Yeah.
Used interchangeably by some people. But let's just get your quick reaction to the Lumesi parliamentary by-election that you as Tonse fielded in a member from the National Congress Party, and you lost to the UPND. Others would say Lumesi should have been a stronghold for Tonse, but we saw you coming up short to the UPND. What do you make of that by-election that you lost as Tonse?
I would actually repeat that the by-election in Lumesi must go down in history as the greatest scam in the electoral process of this country. Why do I say so? Because ideally the reality is there were a lot of irregularities. We saw ballot papers being printed, not having the nomenclatures of the candidates in full, which was an error. And of course, the Electoral Commission of Zambia deciding not to defer the elections to a later date so as to allow for proper printing and proper consultation to be done with the parties. We saw that irregularity happening. How or why it happened, it begs that question to be answered by the UPND as well as the Electoral Commission of Zambia. However, the credibility of that election was compromised from the very start of them refusing to defer that election so as to allow proper consultation to be done. And remember, the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia has provided that a by-election is held 90 days, within 90 days from the date the seat becomes vacant. That is the reality. Now, we were running towards the second month, which is about 60 or 65 days, when that occurred. It was going to be extremely logical for the Electoral Commission of Zambia to increase or to at least add even a week or two to those to the time frame for the election, so as to allow parties to be engaged, be involved, and there was no rational reason that the Electoral Commission of Zambia gave as to not extending the time frame for the election.
Why did you want the time frame to be extended?
How do you print? How do you print ballot papers within 48 hours and decide to take the ballot papers directly to the polling stations without consultation and engagement of parties or stakeholders in the election? That in itself leaves or begs the question of integrity of the elections. Two, it begs the question of accountability. We don't know how many papers were printed. It begs the question of transparency, which are the key cornerstones of any credible election: transparency, accountability, and the integrity of the process. But that in itself has left it hanging because of what they did.
So let me just get you
ideally,
right, Council. So you're saying at the moment the Electoral Commission of Zambia saw that was a mistake. They should have called you as political parties and say, okay, we've got this issue, so we're going to extend by a week and then we go forward, as opposed to what they did, reprint and go on with the by-election.
Exactly the point, and that is our basis of even coming up with a petition.
And did you raise those concerns before?
Issues? Yes, those issues were raised to the Commission, and the Electoral Commission is aware that the stakeholders raised those issues, as a matter of fact. And by the way, and that is why I always indicate that colleagues that are manning these offices should ensure that they advise these institutions on the basis or on the premise of the law. Did you know that even if the Electoral Commission of Zambia was to decide to move those elections by about a week, they would still have managed to be within the confines of the legal provision of 90 days? That was the rational thing to do. There was nothing. What was the rush all about? So ideally, Lumesi is an issue which has to be looked at. We will definitely petition because we know we need to have a credible Electoral Commission going to 2026. We need to ensure that the Electoral Commission of Zambia gets to a point of doing the right thing to improve on the credibility of our elections in this country. And at the point where we will get that credibility, then I think in the region we'll get to a point of having genuineness in how we elect our leaders. So with regards to Lumesi, I think it's neither here nor there. I would actually advise the people of Lumesi to prepare themselves for yet another by-election, because that seat will definitely be nullified on the grounds which we feel that our own terra firma will succeed once we take our petition on.
All right. Let's quickly. So that's on the Lumesi by-election. Now let's get quickly to the constitutional review process. We had the Constitutional Amendment Bill number 7 of 2025, and this particular bill actually even entered first reading in as far as Parliament is concerned. It was read out on the floor of the House, and the President, according to the information that we've got from government, I was just listening to the Minister of Justice last night on Coastal Dam on television, said after further consultation with civil society organizations and the church, the President then decided that this particular review process should be deferred for further consultation. Now, this comes at the backdrop of, in the first place, the Republican President informing the nation that Zambians have agreed that we should, or there should be, changes to the Constitution. But also what was very interesting is that we saw the Constitutional Court, because yourself and former Member of Parliament for Lumesi petitioned the Constitutional Court against this particular process. So it was, I think, should have been, was it 2 days or a day after?
A day after.
A day after the President announced that this particular process should be deferred, that we also saw the Constitutional Court giving its ruling on this particular matter, that it needed to do, or it needed to undergo further consultation. What do you make of how this particular process has been handled? There was the deferment, and now the Constitutional Court, after that deferment, came through and said, look, we feel this particular process, there are some shortfalls that it has to meet.
It's amazing that this government is taking the Zambian people for granted. They think we are fools. Unfortunately, I'll say we are resolved to ensuring that we provide proper checks and balances. We are resolved to ensuring that the rule of law is respected, the Constitution is protected at all costs. And we've placed ourselves on record that when it comes to the Constitution, make no mistake to politicize it, because it is not a political battle. It is a battle for democracy. It's a battle for the protection and defense of the Constitution. Mm-hmm. That in itself, we've placed it on record that we shall do so even if it means doing so with our lives. However, coming to the issue of the petition, of course, we found it fit that we must petition the Concord to ensure that they interpret these provisions and just the process upon which this government decided to want to amend the Constitution. Mm-hmm. Believing very well that the process the government adopted was frowned upon by many Zambians, including ourselves and civil society organizations, of course, the church, LAS, and everyone else. We spoke against the process that was adopted by the government because we believe that the process gives credence to the content. But what we saw was a bulldozed process which did not live to the aspirations of Zambians. And we said we cannot let this go, because it goes against the very foundation of our democracy. It goes against the very foundation of our constitution, which in the preamble has stated that we the people give unto ourselves a constitution. Now, having understood the principles surrounding a constitution and the constitution making process, and just the jurisprudence around it, we believed that there is a legitimate expectation as to how a constitution can be amended. But what we saw is this government going ahead with coming up with provisions. Where they came up with these provisions, nobody knows. It's just a clique of hegemonists who sat in that cabinet, thinking they are the only ones who can come up with a constitution. However, we decided to take it to court, and alas, we got a judgment in our favor, as a matter of fact. And amongst the reliefs that the court granted us includes one where the court indicated that we declare that the decision by the respondent to initiate a constitution amendment process before undertaking wide consultations with the people goes against the spirits of Articles 1, 2, 5, 7, 8, 9, 61, 90, 91, and 92 of the Constitution. This simply means that the Constitutional Court is indicating that the process of coming up with that draft is unconstitutional because it goes against the spirit of these provisions of the Constitution. It further goes on where the Constitutional Court has recommended, now they're going forward to say, we order, in fact, this is an order. It's not even a recommendation per se. This is an order. We order that the respondent complies with the spirit of the Constitution by ensuring a people-driven process led by an independent body of experts in conducting wide consultations with the people. So this order is extremely clear. The government has been ordered to comply with the spirit of the Constitution, which simply means that there should be a wide consultation that must be conducted or undertaken. Now, this wide consultation must be done in relation to the legitimate expectation of the Zambian people on how a constitution is made.
Yeah, and to put that into simple terms so that people understand, when you say a wide consultation, what does this mean? Does this mean that now this process has to go all the way from down, wide consensus, all the way to the top?
Exactly. Remember, it says we the people give unto ourselves this constitution. Now, remember, the jurisprudence, the historical background of constitution making process in Zambia stems from 1972, from the Chona Commission. I don't know if you remember that one, from the Chona Commission. It goes on to the Mvunga Constitution Review Commission. It goes on to the Mwanakatwe Constitution Review Commission. It goes on to the Mungomba Constitution Review Commission, up until the National Constitutional Conference, the NCC. It went on to the Technical Committee on drafting the Zambian Constitution. And further, the last one, which was in 2019, the National Dialogue Forum. Now, all these processes gave a guideline as to how constitutions are amended in Zambia. How? By way of the president instituting a commission of inquiry, using the Inquiries Act to appoint these committees of experts, and from there the committees of experts will go out there and obtain data from the Zambian people as to which provisions in the constitution require refining, or which provisions should be included, or what exactly do we need to do in order to ensure that this constitution lives up to the aspirations of modern times. Now, that is exactly what the courts have guided, and that is where we need to get to. But what our colleagues did is they just came up with the provisions themselves. And in fact, they decided in their infinite wisdom to in fact even indicate that no, the provisions we are looking at are non-contentious provisions. But at no point can you have a provision in the Constitution which is which is not contentious, because the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia is extremely clear as to the process of interpreting provisions of the Constitution, how you have to take the provision before the court. Anything that goes before court is contentious, as a matter of fact. Now, when you look at the guidance of the Constitutional Court, on page J24 of the judgment, if you are going to look at paragraph 54, the courts have actually indicated that we have noted the respondent's argument that the proposed amendments relate to non-contentious issues. Now, the courts have said, we are not convinced. More so, as even so, the so-called non-contentious issues can change the Constitution fundamentally. The way to properly protect the Constitution is to take every amendment process through a wide consultative process with the people at inception. So where we are today, the court has guided. What we must now do is to forget about Bill 7. It is gone. The Constitutional Court has actually declared it unconstitutional. So government now has to ensure that the president institutes a commission of inquiry and gives them terms of reference as to what exactly he wants. Perhaps it even gives us as Zambians an opportunity to even come up with a constitutional provision that will deal with how to bury former heads of states, unlike having an ethical dilemma that we have right now.
Yeah, so, but also when we look at the coincidence, one may say coincidence, or one may say that's how things just panned out to be. Are you a little bit surprised?
I'm not surprised.
That the president deferred it, then the following day the Concord rules in your favor, the petitioners.
That's what I'm saying. You see, the coincidence is too much. It is too much that it spews out the fact that this president may have had an idea as to the outcome of the matter. Maybe his attorney general may have told him that, boss, we failed to defend the matter because there were incredible constitutional lawyers who defended the matter or prosecuted the matter, as a matter of fact. But for me, I feel it is too much of a coincidence. And on top of that, what puzzles me is even the wording of using deferment is actually very unprofessional, or should I say, it spews out levels of incompetence, because deferring this does not in any way save you from the liability of the breach of the constitutional provision. For me right now, I'll actually tell you that it only calls for two things right now going forward. It's either this president resigns on moral grounds after having breached the provisions of the Constitution, which Constitution is sought in to protect and defend, or he's impeached. And I'm praying for this to happen. I am praying for this to happen because going forward, we need high levels of integrity in the office, which is supposed to have a noble duty of defending and protecting the Constitution.
Yeah, don't you think this is another case of perhaps maybe people that sit around the president maybe not advising him really well? Because at the end of the day, when you look at the judgment that came through from the Constitutional Court, it clearly stipulates that there was a breach. Certain things were not followed, and one may think the people that are advising the president should have this information to say, Mr. President, this particular issue did not start from the grassroots. It did not go through a thorough process at the grassroots, and henceforth we cannot escalate it to national level. Do you think this is perhaps another case of maybe some people sleeping at the job?
It's definitely that, because for me, I would actually say, if it were up to me today, being president, I would actually fire with immediate effect the Minister of Justice. I would fire with immediate effect the person in charge of legal affairs at State House. I would actually ensure that the Attorney General is suspended with immediate effect, because these are issues.
That's how ruthless you would be.
It would not be being ruthless.
Given an opportunity to run the affairs of the country.
Constitutional issues must be treated with the sacrosanct that they come with. A constitution is a sacrosanct document. It must be respected. if you are going to advise the president on matters to do with the constitution, do so having done your proper research. Or perhaps if you feel you are inept in that role, it's not a problem for you to leave the role. There's nothing wrong with you resigning or letting any other person handling it. Because I'll tell you, the president has got a battalion of lawyers at his disposal at the Attorney General's chambers. You'll not tell me that there is no constitutional lawyer who will have given the president the correct data when it comes to how to amend the constitution, or the fact that we were on radio, we were on TV, indicating and giving ourselves out, giving free legal advice to this government that there is a legitimate expectation as to how a constitution is supposed to be amended. What we have to do is to follow a process that will be all-encompassing, a process that will include proper consultation, so as to ensure that we have, one, a legitimate process which will provide legitimacy in the constitution, one where we're going to have a constitution that will live up to the aspiration of the people, one that will be people-driven, three, a constitution that will have acceptability of society. We gave ourselves to it, and the reason we did that, and that is why I keep saying, make no mistake, our fight to protect the constitution is not political. It's extremely important to understand. I have an inherent duty, for example, to protect and defend this constitution. Now, this duty stems from the oath of office that I have taken. Secondly, from the oath that I have taken, the oath of allegiance to the president. So I've got a duty to tell this president the truth. Where I see my colleagues in State House, my colleagues at AG chambers not doing the right thing to advise this president, I have an inherent duty to advise the president, say, Mr. President, this is the wrong way you are moving. Please, let's do the correct thing. We do so in writing. We do so by putting out publications. We do so by coming here and giving our peace of mind as to how a constitution must be amended.
Okay.
We also indicated that there is a legitimate expectation as to what the Zambian people expect.
Council, going forward, there are two words here from the president, it's deferment, and I was also listening to the Minister of Justice. She kept on saying deferment. But there's... The Concord says this particular process should restart, and let's study it from, and let's follow the right channels. But going forward, how do you think we should tackle or address these issues of the constitutional amendments? Where should we start from? Should we still start from some of the provisions that have been given to us through Bill 7, or you want an overhaul and we just start from afresh?
The reality is, and I'm amazed that I actually watched that interview by the minister. I was extremely perplexed that she didn't know what she was talking about. I mean, I expected that I think she needed to be briefed more, or perhaps in that office we needed the legal mind to handle the office of Minister of Justice. Because clearly, how does a minister come to the floor of the House or come to national television and indicate that, no, we've deferred, we've done what, with very good English? The reality is, the judgment is clear. It was unconstitutional. It's a gone issue. It's a dead issue. You'll need to go back to point zero, because the courts have guided. In fact, the courts have ordered you to follow, to ensure that the process of coming up with a bill lives up to the aspirations of the spirit of these constitutional provisions. What then do you do? Start afresh. There is no deferment here. The wording of a deferment that was placed by way of a minister informing the National Assembly has ceased to exist. It has become an academic exercise. Where we are now is that process has all died. The court have ordered to say, go back and do the right thing. Bwererani, what is happening now is you'll have to go to point zero, start afresh. The Zambian people need to give you the provisions they intend that have to be amended, not you as government. That is why I said, I think if this is the quality of leadership the president promised the Zambian people, then I'm sorry, but it lacks merit. You can't have a minister of justice miscommunicating to the Zambian people in that manner. So I think that is the point where I miss my comrade Haimbe when he was Minister of Justice, because he would have really spoken to the issue of what the law entails with the order of the court.
So for you, going forward, how does a people-driven constitution look like? Where should we start from? Let's also get into the time frame. Seeing that there's 2026 next year general elections, do you feel that perhaps these constitutional provisions, we should start to talk about them after the elections, or we can start as early as now, but in a different way? And let's start first with the people on the ground.
Well, for me, I've always indicated that the question should be, do we really need to even amend this constitution? If the answer is yes, then why are we amending it? Have we tested the provisions of the constitution entirely? Because I believe the reason why the constituent authority from the people were placed onto the courts, which is the Constitutional Court, to interpret this constitution, is because the constitution has to be tested entirely or fully. Provisions that you feel have got a lacuna or produce a repugnance or an inconsistency with other provisions have to be tested by the court. The Constitutional Court has to interpret these provisions. You cannot wake up and say, no, this constitution has got a lacuna, let's amend it. No, Bwana, it doesn't work like that. Take the provision to court, let's interpret it. If the Constitutional Court is going to indicate that, no, this provision actually lacks the merits of its stature, it has to be amended to suit this and that, then and only then can we look at that provision. As it stands, I will tell you, provisions that were brought before as proposed in Bill 7, such as ministers leaving office, the courts already gave the position. There was no need for us to even decide to amend the constitution. Provisions such as those that involve the petition of president. The courts already gave a position. There was no need. So, going forward, I am glad that the courts have now given a legal process, a process upon which a constitution can be amended. So, we never had a law before as to what procedure. Traditionally we would use what the Inquiries Act and all from the legitimate expectation. Of course, now that the Constitutional Court has given guidance, that is what we must be doing going forward. A committee of experts is appointed by way of the Inquiries Act, and there they will go out and consult the Zambian people, acquire or obtain data. That data will now be placed on the table to say the Zambian people want this provision to be amended. The Zambian people currently feel this debate, the chochise of having a former president to either be buried in South Africa or whatever, has to come to an end. What do? Let's amend the constitution to suit this and that. This is an opportunity for us to do the right thing. There is nothing wrong with doing the right thing. If the government still feels the need to amend this constitution, let them go back there and do the right thing. The president has got power to institute a commission of inquiry using the Inquiries Act, gives terms of reference to this commission to ensure that they amend the constitution. There's nothing wrong with that. With regards to the time frame, well, it will be dependent on the president as well as how fast we can consult the Zambian people.
But in your considered view, what are you thinking after
I've
elections?
never even comprehended amending this constitution because it's not been fully tested. For me, I don't feel we need to amend.
You just talked about one clause of how maybe we should bury the former presidents. Don't you think that should come through the constitution?
It's a proposal that the Zambian people need to sit on the table and give their inputs on. So
for you, you're not really of the idea that amendments should be made to the constitution.
Why do you want to change to amend the constitution that you have not fully tested? That is the question. So for me, I'll tell you, If you want to look at proportion,
that was what I was coming to, because
perhaps,
again, going back to the Minister of Justice last night, she talked about how that when she was doing these engagements, the issue of proportional representation, especially from the chiefs, was highly supported,
which she failed to even explain properly.
So then, how do we get to issues of mixed proportional representation in Parliament?
You know, comrade, I will tell you that I am speaking from a privileged point, because in 2014, I wrote a paper when I was doing my LLB and proposed actually that proportional representation would be the best electoral system for this country. In that paper, I was trying to resolve minority rights and majority rights to ensure that we balance it up. And for me, I felt proportional representation would have been the best electoral system. And in that paper, I gave a hint to say we would have had a scenario where the leader of opposition or the leader of a political party, which was a grand opposition, would be in the National Assembly itself to give their insights, because we would have come up with a proportional representation mode of electoral system, which would have provided that we're looking at a threshold. Depending on the threshold of a political party that will get the number of votes, then they will have a seat in the National Assembly.
Yes.
Now, for me, I had proposed in 2014 that the best electoral system is proportional representation. And what form of proportional representation? A party list system, and not a mixed member that they are they were proposing. So a party list system for me would have ensured, for example, that we know for a fact on this list there are youths there in this majority. On this list there are people who are differently abled. On this list the vice president shall be a woman. So for me that would have worked out well. However, this electoral system requires that there should be electoral reforms that you conduct also. And from that, you should also give a structure as to how you want to achieve proportional representation. The Zambian people equally need to put in an input as to how they feel this electoral system is going to work to the advantage of Zambians, or perhaps to work to the advancement of democracy. Remember, all this is done as a model of entrenching our democratic principles in Zambia.
Okay, so that's on the mixed proportional representation, right? Delimitation, that when it came in, they said it's a non-contentious issue. What would be your alternative to the way it was presented? Do you feel that there's need for us to delimitate some constituencies? Because even delimitation, it was 50-50. Other members of parliament felt we shouldn't go that route. Other members of parliament highly supported that there's need for delimitation. And again, I repeat, it puzzles me to underscore that we've got individuals in these high offices who don't even understand what these provisions to do with delimitation indicated. Delimitation as provided for in the Constitution currently, has got nothing to do with splitting constituencies. Nothing totally. This delimitation only deals with boundaries. You change boundaries. And perhaps it must also be understood. And this is why I'm saying, I think next time as we elect leaders, let's ensure that people understand what it means to be an MP. People understand what it means to govern a country. It's extremely important. We need to assess the levels of understanding of the governance process. Did you know that the constitution that we have currently does not provide for a specific amount or for equitable distribution of CDF as a fund? It only provides, or it only creates the fund itself to say, therein we have created this fund called CDF. Now, that in itself, we propose to government. In fact, we informed the government to say, listen, when we're having engagements with them, by the way, which engagement they decided to thrash under the table, we told them to say, when you want to amend a provision to do with delimitation, for example, forget about the boundary, the constituencies. Don't even cut them. There's no need. The Constitution already provides that you can change sizes. You can change the boundaries. A constituency that has got a huge space or a huge population,
just ensure that you distribute CDF in an equitable manner, depending on the political dynamics, the population dynamics, and also the sizes of the constituency. All you need to do is come up with policy. Local authorities, which is the council, as well as the National Assembly, coming up with policy as to how we are going to distribute this CDF. That is all. If Matero has got 300,000 people or 500,000 people, give them more money. If Mpika has got less people or you need more development, give them more money. You can actually come up with that in that manner. You don't need to give the Constitution, or there is no law that has provided that you need to just give a specific amount. That is a matter of policy. But we told our colleagues to say, listen, you can still come up with policy. Change the geographic locations of these constituencies or change the sizes. You can decide that Matero constituency will now only be Ward 24 or Ward 32 in Matero. And then the rest of them, you spew into another constituency. Just change. Maintain the 156. Besides, do you even have the money to manage 210 members of parliament? We don't have the money. We are broke because we've got leaders that have failed to manage the economy of this country. Going forward, we need people who understand. They must understand what it means to even have this CDF. In 1990, is it in 1998, when we came up with this CDF fund, what was the intention? It is called Constituency Development Fund, meant for poverty alleviation in certain areas. But how are we even looking at it right now? Because clearly, you will see an MP even claiming that, no, in my constituency, CDF this, CDF that. An MP literally has got just an oversight of how the fund is used. Because most of these MPs, I will actually tell you as a matter of fact, most of them might not even understand how the CDF works. And that is why they even want to find themselves on CDF committees. Bwana, your role as a parliamentarian is to enact legislation and to lobby. It's as simple as that. Enact legislation and lobby for projects to be done. The National Assembly has got a committee which is Government Assurance Committee. The government will give its assurances. You as an MP, you will go there and push the line ministries to say, Bwana, you assured this. Can you tell us how far you've gone? It is not for you to go and start saying, it's very laughable. And I think going forward, we must start looking at the credibility of the people that aspire to run this country.
All right. The number is 0956-200-490. That's the number that you can get in touch with the studio, 0956-200-490. Let's get your contribution with regards to today's topic. Just looking at the deferment, but the Constitutional Court has ruled that the process of the Constitution Amendment Bill number 7 of 2025 be abandoned, and we start all over again. So I'm privileged to be joined by Tonse Alliance Youth Chairperson. He is also a lawyer and also Matero aspiring Member of Parliament, Councillor Celestin Mukandila. He's with us in studio this morning to help us look at this particular topic. Quickly, let's get some phone calls. Hello, good morning. You are through to the program.
Good morning.
Your name and
Thank
where?
you very much. Good morning, panel.
Good morning, sir.
Your name and where you calling us from?
This is Richard calling me in the Kango area.
Yes, go ahead with the contribution.
Good morning, the presenter there.
Yes, good morning. Go ahead with the contribution, Richard.
Thank you very much. My contribution is that you are speaking very well about the Constitutional Court. But also, I was very much surprised that the president would come in that way before the judgment comes, meaning that he knew that the judgment would come like that. So, what I think is that the judiciary is not independent. The judiciary is not independent, definitely. That's why I find that the hearing of different MPs is coming up because of the judges we have today. You see, so many people are in prisons because of the judges. So they are not meaning well in this country. So way forward, you are the one who knows how to interpret all this. Can you ensure that you panic the government to do the right thing so that they will do what is needed on the ground? about the constitution, we will see that they will come back with another constitution, which they will take maybe 15, 14, like that. So, meaning that you should ensure that they should not come up with any constitution at all. Thanks very much.
All right. Thank you so much for your contribution, Richard. Richard, they are very strong, saying maybe the president knew of what the Concord was going to. Anyway, let's get another call. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Yes, your name and where are you calling us from?
Good morning, Mr. Fresh on the line.
Mr. Fresh?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Fresh. What's your government name, Mr. Fresh?
Charles Cherombewe.
Okay, go ahead. Where are you calling us from?
I'm within Lusaka. Comrade Celestin, good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm very fresh despite the economy. First thing, I think I want to appreciate you and receive the flowers now as you continue to pursue this government which has completely failed. And happy that you are there to defend the Zambian constitution, and happy that the constitution of Zambia also, gave you the guarantee to say what you protected is what must be given to you. And sadly, that the man that you were pushing that agenda with, Munia, is in prison right now because of trying to defend the Zambian constitution. Today, I'm saddened to see that we have the president in place, but I think there is a lack of a lot of information that needed to be given to the president. Or does it mean, maybe my question is, does it mean the president, these solicitor generals and attorney generals do not advise this president to have knowledge about the constitution? Or does it mean the president is bulldozing every situation as we know him to be a bulldozer in a lot of programs? Today we are able to see Freemasons celebrating whatever they call it, and the president is quiet. Today the Freemasons are donating classroom blocks in this land, and we are quiet. What are we doing as Zambians? What are we doing as Christians? Does it mean the so-called gloves that the president usually put on nearly every ceremony, it's equal to what the Freemasons are doing?
Mr. Charles,
and is in support of it?
Mr. Charles, thank you so much for your contribution.
No, I think we really
appreciate.
need to work on this.
Okay.
Otherwise,
right.
as a
Thank you
nation,
so
we
much.
have lost it.
Thank you so much for your contribution. Hello, good morning. Yes, your name and where are you calling us from? Rashmalan from the Copper Belt. Go ahead with the contribution.
Good morning, Mr. Mukandila.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
It's fine. Ngana mumona panombano kushinisha bana Zambia bashinishe kwe bati ba PF maloya abantu bayishiba amafunde irashira constitution kandi bambire kulanda kwe bati shumule tseba yupenzi mwala ona ule cyane cha constitution teka nyefi kupere kubantu lero ba president barishibyo kwe bati ba court kulya upingushi wala bisi ekulanda olubiro so ngana mumona kusa kutekelea abantu kiri ya Rwanda. So abena Zambia bonse balemuna. Even wa UPNG bali very disappointed. Kandi wakateke into urushi kushabo. The president bali kutanja face bonse abafanda man. Advisor babo. Brand wakwe bachi advisor iba kumusalo kwe bachi ale yafa ba president. Tomanga tewale bafwa. Isha kutanja ba advisor. So kyontefi Zambia na tusebana umlando wabuteko kwa UPNG. Kapale for why she governance.
All right, thank you so much for your contribution. Council, respond to that, and perhaps we can get maybe two more before we wrap up.
Thank you very much to the callers. And you see, Angel, I'll actually tell you the amazing part. I received more than 45 messages of congratulating myself and Comrade Zulu, Munir Zulu, over the successful petition that we had in the Constitutional Court from UPND members of Parliament. And the amazing part is these colleagues who are UPND members of Parliament equally failed to advise their president. They indicated that, according to what we were informed, that they tried to advise, but the advice was falling on deaf ears. That's how amazing it was. Now, imagine, I indicated that there are two things we're expecting: a resignation or an impeachment motion placed on the floor of the House. Now, people may actually think this, the very way they thought this case that we took to the Constitutional Court was a mundane exercise. They may think that in an event where we have a notice of impeachment on the floor of the House of the National Assembly, they may think that we'll not have the numbers. Alas, you'll be shocked. And I can assure you, my brother, there's a lot of support that we'll get from within the UPND to back up such, because they equally, a lot of MPs actually say, you see, we saw in to protect this constitution. We can't let this happen. We can't let this continue. But anyway, I leave it to the members of parliament to decide eventually. But all I can say is we must ensure to protect and defend the Constitution of the Republic. It's extremely important. And let's not let leaders politicize certain moves. This is not political. This is purely an act of patriotism intended to ensure that we have the right country.
Okay, all right. Let's get 3 more calls. Hello, good morning. You are through to the program.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well. Your name and where are you calling us from?
This is Auntie Dorothy. I'm calling from Kamwala.
Yes, go ahead with the contribution, Auntie Dorothy.
I, as a senior citizen, I support the legislation. And there's nothing to celebrate about that the Concord Court has done what. The president has said, let's be fair. You know, here for 7 years in power, they wanted to 10. It failed. So here there is no failure. We'll continue with this constitution. And you know, let's not be accusing UPND that they are supporting Tonse. No. They are fed up with propaganda and fakers. Just come and tell the nation what you think. We have better qualified people in UPND who are thinking well and are leading the country well. Please respect the president. We have a transformative and visionary president in state. Let's respect him. It's like every Jim and Jake wants to be equal with the president. No, let's respect the president and pray for him. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Auntie Dorothy, for your contribution. Great to know that Kamwala is tuned in. Hello, good morning. You are through to the program.
Morning, Angelo.
Yes, your name and where are you calling us from?
Manik from Kitwe.
Manix from Kitwe. Go ahead with the contribution.
Well, the constitution chawama yaluka. Ibali kuileta constitution amendment chawama yapelera. Pati vintu funa shima mesanjeo. Fight fintu. Ukulanda after the okay. Now after my elections. Uma before the after my elections, I go constitution amendment ya no. Control of those politics. Particularly, once our chief president Mumbai, ever show our president Shin Kalagi, Arewa, advisors Wabo. So I think I'm also one for our president, but to know advisor. No, it's both of us, it's just going to spoken history, of course, to start the ground. Every time I watch pocket it, everyone was supposed to parliament. The top to find that it was going to go to Taco, but what to be changed. That's why your constitution Yaonaika, and you thought to Sana, it would be a go. Bankandra, Mondo William White.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Manix from the Copper Belt. This one says, good morning. Enjoying the program. It's good that this constitution was brought down. However, Mr. Mukandila, you speak with so much hate. Thank you so much. No name for this one. It says you speak with so much hate. This other one just says, hello, good morning. Listening to the program. Thank you so much. This is from Peter. Thank you so much, Peter. All right, let's squeeze in one more call, 0956 200 490. Okay. Okay, all right, Council, you can respond to those three concerns. One from Auntie Dorothy, the other one from Manix, and no name that says that you speak with so much hate.
Yeah, Auntie Dorothy, thank you very much. It shows that you are actually listening, and it's also important that we respect your views and opinions, but the fact is that we have a constitution that we have to protect at all cost. The gentleman who indicated that we speak with so much hate, unfortunately, if what we talk about or how we come out does not represent love, then I don't know what love means, because we are showing that we love our country. We are showing that we love the office of president. We want to ensure that the correct thing is done for the benefit of the Zambians. We are showing that we love being patriotic. We love our constitution. And it's extremely important that we understand that love must lead, as a matter of fact. So, but it's extremely important to also realize that the process of governing this country entails that we abide by the law, we stand in by the law. If we've got a law that provides for a certain procedure to be undertaken, we shall be there to ensure that the Constitution is protected and guarded.
Just last week, we saw you in South Africa attending the funeral service of the late 6th Republican President, Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu. And at that particular moment, before the government engaged the courts in South Africa, it was earmarked that his body was going to be buried in South Africa because of the deadlock that the family and government got into on how these funeral arrangements and burial arrangements should have taken place. Fast forward, the Attorney General announced to the nation that the reason as to why government decided to go the route of the courts was because public interest outweighs family interest, according to him. And he said this particular issue of burying the president, our former president, outside of the country is an issue that overrides on public interest as opposed to family interest. Now that as a nation we've decided to go the legal way, others are of the view that this issue should have been sorted dialogue. We sit down on the round table and we agree and we move on. But now ball game is totally different because now there are the courts of law. What do you make of how, as a nation, we've handled this particular issue?
Again, it still goes back to an issue of understanding the law, reading more, researching more, and consulting more. For me, I don't think, to begin with, the process that has been commenced in the South African court may even succeed. The chances of succeeding, according to me, I don't think they are anywhere close to succeeding. And the reason I'll give is simple. In Zambia, the law we've been given, according to the Kaweche case, with regards to Kaunda, is that public interest outweighs personal interest when we're dealing with a former president. However, the law in South Africa is different. You remember, we're dealing with two different jurisdictions here. This is a person who went to South Africa as an ordinary person, not as a former president. Remember, his privileges were...
When you say ordinary person, what do you mean? Because regardless of the situation, I
will explain to you. What you have said actually is what we advised our colleagues in government to say, listen, you cannot decide to strip off privileges of a former president from a former president because this person earned this office and they earned this title. He remains a former president. You can't remove certain privileges from him. Whether you like it or not, these are earned privileges. But they refused. Alas, they gave a very emotional legal opinion to the extent that they informed all diplomatic missions belonging to Zambia that the president of the former president of the Republic of Zambia, the 60th president, Dr. Edgar Lungu, no longer was to be accorded diplomatic accolades. Now, going forward, this person goes into South Africa as an ordinary citizen because he was not going to be accorded any diplomatic accolades. In short, the Zambian government doesn't even care whether he's in South Africa or not. Yeah, he goes to the hospital as an ordinary person. As fate had it, he died. Yeah, he died. As a matter of fact. So the question is, and which begs to be answered, the government of the Republic of Zambia has not given the people of Zambia a position or a legal position as to what the status of the former head of state becomes upon his death. They haven't given us that position. And perhaps, what then is the status of this person who has died? Are we telling us that he reverts to being former head of state with all the accolades and all the privileges? Or are we telling us that this person who died in South Africa and the family, and remember, this person who dies in South Africa, the South African law is very strict as to the executor's wish, as well as the deceased wish, and the executor's powers. So they've indicated, and to the extent that they even had to send their minister of foreign affairs to come to Zambia to explain to the Zambian government, to say, in South Africa, Baba, as we follow the wish of the deceased and also the family, close family members, I had time to look at the National Health Act of South Africa. I had time to also look at the Wills Act of South Africa. And it's very clear, by the way, they respect cultural beliefs and also family when it comes to burying deceased more than anything else. So it happened. So our colleagues reached an extent of extending a diplomatic accolade to come and tell the Zambian government to say, Bwana, isiposhika kuja, we respect the family more. So in short, they were telling them to say, just negotiate with the family. That was an extension of a gesture showing to say, before a minister can even leave the country, they had to consult the Attorney General. The Attorney General, tell us, what is the position in this case? They told them a legal opinion. They say, we would have loved that your former president is buried in your country. However, the position of the law in our country is that we respect the family. But what do our colleagues do? Firstly, they make an emotional decision to cancel the mourning period and say, no, the country has to move on. We have moved on. Before you know it, they come back again a day before the burial and take the matter to court. What kind of disrespect is that? What kind of indecision is that? So, in essence, for me, I would actually say this government needed to consult more, and they also needed to know which kind of individuals to even send to go and negotiate with the family.
So for you, you're of the view that this issue should have been sorted even outside the courts, just pure negotiations.
This issue would have been sorted out the very time it was agreed that President Lungu was coming to be buried here. Had government not rolled back on the wishes of the family. I mean, someone was telling me to say, no, how can it be a state funeral without the head of state? Come on, we are not DAO. We've been running governance for a long time. We understand that as long as, government operates on the basis of delegation. You can delegate even a minister. The president can even come and delegate you, Angel, to say, you are going to represent me at that funeral. There's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with that. If people don't want you to go there, there's nothing wrong. If anything, for me, I would have said the president would have even gained a point by indicating, say, no, I'm not going there because the family has said so. He saves himself, one, the embarrassment of even a possible booing from the people. All these things. People need to advise this president correctly. I feel for him. Right now, I can tell you.
So now,
I feel for this president.
Now that the deed has been done, we are into the courts, regardless of the outcomes.
They must. For me, I'll tell you, the outcome is going to be clear. The law in South Africa is very clear. They respect the wish of the family. And whether you like it or not, that court will rule in favor of the family, because there is precedence. We've had time to look at precedents, judicial precedents in South Africa.
Yes.
But what they must do is to continue engaging the family.
Yes,
but they must use the correct people to also engage
a
the
lot
family.
of youths seated under you as Tonse Alliance, youth chairperson are saying, yes, we do believe you, council. But us as Tonse, we feel that our former head of state should be buried in the country, should be buried on Zambian soil. What is your message to those youths that are crying for those?
Actually, the reality is the youths of Zambia and the youths of the Tonse Alliance have indicated that we shall respect the wish of the family. Because it would be a disservice. That's what they have told you. Yes, and because it would be a disservice and a betrayal of the former head of state if we shall not abide by his wish. And we'll support the family's wish at all cost, and the family's decision shall be supported by us at all cost. We are not. Remember, Dr. Lungu had two families. Yeah, there is the actual family, biological family that he had. There's also a Patriotic Front family and the Tonse Alliance family. But the Tonse Alliance family and the Patriotic Front family has indicated that we will go by the decision of the actual family. So whatever the family will decide, if they will decide that they will bring the body tomorrow, we will support that. If they will decide that they will bury in South Africa, we will support that. But our guarantee to the family is we shall ensure that we bury President Lungu in Zambia come the 28th of August 2026.
When you say that, don't you think now you're getting into political talk?
Well, be it political or whatever, it is a certain issue that we shall be forming government in 2026.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for making it through to today's edition of Chatback. Thank you so much and wish you all the best.
Thank you very much, comrade, and thanks very much to the listener.
All right. This is where we come to the end of the conversation this morning. We're just touching a few issues on the Constitution and also other issues that are affecting you, the citizenry. Thank you so much. Up next, we do have the news brief. Then just after that, Chipo comes on with today's edition of Lifestyle. Chatback is next back into your speakers on Wednesday at 09:15. So make sure you do make a date. Thank you so much and have a lovely day.